The TheWhumsif recovery framework. I've been living and stress testing something for a long time now. Not just thinking about it, applying it every single day through exhaustion, setbacks, recovery, relationships, and real-life pressure. Breaking it when it didn't hold up, then rebuilding it stronger. It started because I got tired of the cycles. Tired of knowing what I should do but still repeating the same destructive patterns, emotions, and reactions. I realized that recovery can't stop at just quitting something or staying in permanent crisis management. Real recovery has to move forward, into rebuilding your identity from the ground up. That's why I created the TheWhumsif recovery framework, steps 13 through 26. It's designed to work alongside the important foundation many people already have in earlier recovery work. Where some approaches keep you focused on survival and past wounds, TheWhumsif is about shifting into conscious self-construction, emotional mastery, and intentional living. At its core, TheWhumsif is built on one powerful truth. Human beings are not static. We are systems under construction. Most of us drift through life letting trauma, old habits, emotions, and circumstances define us. TheWhumsif wakes you up to become the conscious architect of who you are becoming. The name, TheWhumsif, comes from what if, that spark of curiosity and possibility. We turn it inward. What if I can truly change? What if pain can become fuel? What if identity is built through consistent effort instead of left to chance? One of the central metaphors is the wild horse, the raw power inside all of us. Emotion, drive, anger, fear, obsession, and instinct. Most people either let the horse run wild and cause destruction, or they try to kill it by suppressing everything. TheWhumsif teaches you to harness the beast, to direct that energy instead of being controlled by it. Anger becomes drive, fear becomes awareness, intensity becomes momentum. So how does it actually work day to day? It starts simple. First, step 13, self-definition. You consciously choose who you are becoming instead of letting your past, your addiction, or other people define you. You write identity statements and ask yourself daily, did my actions align with the person I'm building? Next, step 14, personal charter. You create your own internal set of principles and standards, your personal laws that guide you even when emotions are running high. Then the real daily practice begins, journaling. Every day you write honestly about what happened, situations, feelings, thoughts, and responses. You don't have to force it. Some days you'll only touch 1 or 2 steps. Other days, as your awareness grows, one entry might hit multiple steps at once. Some days very little happens, and that's normal too. The magic is what happens next. The system breaks your entry down and maps it to the framework. It shows you exactly which steps were active, emotional awareness, thought, discipline, intentional action, relational awareness, identity embodiment, and so on. It highlights where you harnessed the beast well, where old patterns tried to show up, and where real growth appeared. This turns journaling from vague venting into an active tool for identity construction. Over time, it creates separation between your impulses and your choices. You start seeing patterns clearly. You build trust in yourself by keeping small promises. You move from reacting to responding. The steps from 13 to 26 overlap and build on each other, from inner work like emotional awareness and thought discipline, to outer work like responsibility, purposeful creation, leadership, service, and legacy. It's not rigid. It's scaffolding. You'll revisit earlier steps while working on later ones. The whole framework is intentionally flexible and still evolving, because real life keeps teaching new lessons. What can TheWhumsif actually do? It helps you break destructive loops. It builds real emotional regulation and self-awareness. It supports genuine identity change so you stop drifting in survival mode and start creating stability, better relationships, meaningful work, and purpose. It turns past pain into strength, empathy, and forward momentum. I've watched it change me. And I believe it can help others who are ready to move beyond just staying sober, into actually building a stronger, more directed life. Here's what it really takes. Radical honesty with yourself. Consistency over intensity. The willingness to sit with discomfort and keep returning when you fall off. It's not a quick fix or motivational gimmick. Growth is messy and nonlinear, but that's where the real construction happens. At its heart, TheWhumsif keeps asking one simple but powerful question. What kind of person am I intentionally building? I'm still living it, still refining it, and I believe there's something real and valuable here worth building together. Chapter 13. Self-definition. Choose who you are becoming. The problem. Most people never consciously define themselves. Instead, they inherit identities from life. Some are defined by trauma. Some by addiction. Some by failure. Some by success. Some by what other people told them they were. Without realizing it, many people spend years living inside identities they never consciously chose. You hear it in the language people use. I'm just an addict. I'm just an angry person. I'm bad with money. I'm always going to struggle. I'm broken. I'm a victim. I'm the black sheep. The problem is not that these experiences happened. The problem is when experiences become identities. A person who believes they're broken will unconsciously act broken. A person who believes they're doomed will unconsciously move toward doom. Identity becomes the lens through which all behavior is filtered. Why self-definition matters. Every action is downstream from identity. People often try to change behavior without changing identity. They focus on stopping a habit, fixing a problem, controlling emotions, forcing motivation. But behavior follows belief. If a person secretly believes, I am a failure, then every success feels temporary. Every setback feels like proof. Every challenge reinforces the identity. This creates a self-reinforcing loop. Psychologists call this self-consistency. Human beings naturally seek consistency between who they believe they are and how they behave. The mind prefers consistency even when the identity is unhealthy. The psychology of self-definition. The brain constantly builds internal stories. These stories help organize reality. Over time, repeated experiences become conclusions. The danger is that conclusions formed during painful seasons often become permanent labels. A person who experiences addiction may conclude, I am an addict. A person who experiences betrayal may conclude, I am unlovable. A person who experiences failure may conclude, I am incapable. The framework challenges those conclusions. Instead of asking, what happened to me? It begins asking, who am I intentionally becoming? This shifts identity from reaction to construction. How to practice self-definition. Begin by writing identity statements. Not fantasies. Not wishes. Intentional identities. Examples. I am becoming a disciplined man. I am becoming emotionally aware. I am becoming trustworthy. I am becoming a builder instead of a destroyer. I am becoming someone who responds instead of reacts. Notice the wording. Not, I already am. Not, I hope to be. But, I am becoming. This creates room for growth while maintaining direction. Questions for reflection. What identities have I accepted without questioning? Which labels no longer serve me? Who do I want to become? What values define that person? Did my actions today align with that identity? How this step evolves. At first, self-definition feels artificial. You may not believe your new identity. That is normal. The old identity has years of reinforcement behind it. Over time, intentional action begins supporting intentional identity. Eventually, the identity becomes believable. Then natural. Then embodied. The goal is not pretending to be someone else. The goal is becoming who you choose to become. Key insight. If you do not define yourself intentionally, life will define you reactively. Chapter 14. Personal Charter. Create internal laws before emotion makes decisions for you. The problem. Most people make decisions emotionally. When they feel strong, they act strong. When they feel motivated, they work. When they feel disciplined, they stay disciplined. When they feel discouraged, they quit. This creates inconsistency. The problem is not emotion. The problem is allowing emotion to become the highest authority. Emotion changes hourly. Principles can remain stable. What is a personal charter? A personal charter is a written set of principles, standards, and commitments that guide behavior regardless of emotional state. Think of it as your internal constitution. It answers, what do I stand for? What do I refuse to become? How will I behave when life gets difficult? What principles guide my decisions? A charter provides stability when emotions fluctuate. Why a charter works. During emotional flooding, decision quality decreases. When people are angry, afraid, lonely, exhausted, overwhelmed, they often make decisions designed for relief instead of long-term success. The charter acts as a pre-made decision system. Instead of asking, what do I feel like doing? You ask, what does my charter say? This shifts behavior from reaction to intention. The psychology behind it. Research consistently shows that pre-commitment increases follow-through. When people establish standards before temptation appears, they make better decisions. Athletes do this. Military organizations do this. Successful businesses do this. The framework asks, why shouldn't individuals do the same? The charter reduces decision fatigue. Instead of reinventing yourself every day, you operate from established principles. Examples of charter statements. I pause before reacting. I seek understanding before judgment. I tell the truth even when uncomfortable. I build instead of destroy. I do not abandon myself during difficult seasons. I take responsibility for my choices. I return quickly after setbacks. I protect my peace without isolating myself. I act according to purpose instead of impulse. How to practice. Write your charter. Keep it simple. Keep it honest. Keep it actionable. Review it regularly. Adjust it as you grow. Use it during difficult moments. A charter is not meant to become a prison. It is meant to become a compass. Questions for reflection. What principles matter most to me? What behaviors consistently create problems? What standards do I want to live by? What kind of person would my ideal self become under pressure? What rules would help me become that person? How this step evolves. At first, the charter feels like a list. Later, it becomes a guide. Eventually, it becomes instinct. The goal is not memorizing rules. The goal is internalizing principles. When the charter becomes part of your thinking, decision-making becomes simpler. Key insight. Emotion changes. Principles remain. A strong life requires internal structure strong enough to survive emotional weather. Chapter 15. Emotional awareness. Notice the storm before it controls the ship. The problem. Most people are not aware of their emotions until after the emotion has already taken control. Anger becomes an argument. Fear becomes avoidance. Loneliness becomes unhealthy attachment. Stress becomes impulsive behavior. The emotional reaction happens first, and awareness arrives later. Many people spend years believing they have an anger problem, an anxiety problem, or a relationship problem when what they actually have is an awareness problem. You cannot regulate what you cannot recognize. What is emotional awareness? Emotional awareness is the ability to recognize your internal emotional state before it fully takes control of your behavior. It means learning to notice frustration, resentment, fear, anxiety, loneliness, shame, excitement, jealousy, gratitude, peace as they arise. The goal is not to eliminate emotions. The goal is to become aware of them. Why emotional awareness matters. Emotions are information. They are signals. The problem begins when signals become commands. Many people either suppress emotions or become controlled by emotions. Neither approach creates stability. The framework teaches a third option. Observe emotions. Understand emotions. Direct emotions. The psychology behind it. Neuroscience shows that emotional reactions occur faster than conscious reasoning. The emotional brain reacts before the logical brain fully processes. This is why people often say, I don't know why I did that. I wasn't thinking. I just reacted. Awareness creates a gap between feeling and action. Inside that gap lives choice. Without awareness there is reaction. With awareness there is possibility. Examples. Instead of, I'm angry. You learn to recognize disappointment, frustration, embarrassment, fear beneath the anger. I'm depressed. You may discover exhaustion, loneliness, hopelessness, grief. The more specific the awareness, the better the response. How to practice. Several times per day ask, what am I feeling right now? What triggered this? Where do I feel it in my body? What need or concern is this emotion pointing toward? Journal emotional states honestly. Do not judge them. Observe them. Questions for reflection. What emotion am I feeling? What triggered it? What story am I telling myself? Is this emotion helping or hurting my current situation? What would awareness look like right now? How this step evolves. At first you only notice emotions after they explode. Later you notice them while they are building. Eventually you notice them before they gain momentum. Awareness creates the space needed for choice. Chapter 16. Thought discipline. Thoughts are signals, not commands. The problem. Most people assume that because they think something, it must be true. This creates suffering. The mind produces thousands of thoughts every day. Some are useful. Some are distorted. Some are irrational. Some are fear pretending to be wisdom. Some are old wounds pretending to be reality. Without discipline, people become servants of their own thoughts. What is thought discipline? Thought discipline is the ability to observe, question, evaluate, and redirect thoughts intentionally. It is not controlling every thought. That is impossible. It is learning that you do not have to obey every thought you have. Why thought discipline matters. Thoughts shape emotions, decisions, behaviors, beliefs, identity. Unexamined thoughts often create unnecessary suffering. The framework teaches that thoughts are data, not orders. They deserve observation before obedience. The psychology behind it. This step is built around metacognition. Metacognition means thinking about your thinking, observing the mind instead of drowning inside it. Most destructive loops operate automatically. Thought, emotion, reaction, consequence. Thought discipline interrupts the loop. The new process becomes thought, observation, evaluation, intentional response. This restores executive control. Examples. Instead of everything is ruined, ask, what evidence supports that? What evidence contradicts it? Am I reacting emotionally? What would I tell a friend in this situation? Instead of nobody cares about me, ask, is that true? Or am I feeling lonely right now? How to practice. Write thoughts down. Challenge assumptions. Slow down catastrophic thinking. Practice halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Ask, is this reality? Or is this emotional distortion? Questions for reflection. What thoughts keep repeating? Are these thoughts true? Are they useful? What evidence exists? Am I observing or obeying? How this step evolves. At first thoughts feel automatic. Later you begin noticing them. Eventually you begin directing them. The goal is not positive thinking. The goal is accurate thinking. Key insight. Not every thought deserves belief or action. Chapter 17. Intentional action. Act deliberately instead of impulsively. The problem. Most people already know what they should do. Knowledge is rarely the problem. Action is. People often understand healthy choices, good habits, responsible behavior, yet still act against their own interests. Why? Because awareness without action changes nothing. What is intentional action? Intentional action is the practice of choosing behavior consciously rather than reacting automatically. It is the bridge between knowing and becoming. This is where identity begins taking physical form. Why intentional action matters. Every action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Small actions repeated consistently become identity. This means every workout matters. Every conversation matters. Every decision matters. Every return after failure matters. Intentional action turns principles into reality. Human behavior is largely habit-driven. The brain seeks efficiency. It automates repeated behaviors. This is helpful when habits are healthy. It becomes destructive when habits are not. Intentional action interrupts automatic behavior long enough for conscious choice to occur. Repeated intentional choices eventually become new habits. New habits reinforce new identity. Examples. Instead of reacting immediately during conflict, pause, think, respond intentionally. Instead of avoiding a difficult responsibility, handle it directly. Instead of following an unhealthy impulse, choose an action aligned with your charter. Pause before major decisions. Ask, will this action help or hurt the life I am building? Will my future self thank me for this? Does this align with my identity? Then act intentionally. Questions for reflection. Did my actions align with my values? Was I reacting or responding? What motivated this choice? What outcome was I seeking? What would intentional action look like here? How this step evolves. At first, intentional action feels forced. Later, it becomes easier. Eventually, intentional behavior becomes habitual. This is where identity begins transforming from theory into reality. Key insight. Direction matters more than emotional momentum. Chapter 18. Consistency. Small repeated actions build identity. The problem. Most people believe change happens through motivation. They wait until they feel inspired. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel confident. The problem is that motivation is unreliable. Some days motivation is abundant. Some days it is absent. If progress depends on motivation, Progress becomes inconsistent. This creates a cycle. Motivation. Action. Loss of motivation. Loss of action. Frustration. Restart. Repeat. Many people spend years trapped inside this loop. What is consistency? Consistency is the practice of continuing intentional action regardless of emotional state. It is showing up repeatedly. Not perfectly. Repeatedly. Consistency means returning after mistakes, continuing after setbacks, showing up when tired, showing up when discouraged, showing up when progress feels slow. The goal is not perfection. The goal is continuation. Why consistency matters. Identity is built through repetition. A single workout does not build strength. A single meeting does not create recovery. A single journal entry does not create self-awareness. A single good decision does not transform a life. Repeated actions do. Consistency transforms isolated actions into patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become identity. The psychology behind it. The brain adapts to repetition. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. The pathways used repeatedly become stronger. The pathways ignored gradually weaken. Every repeated behavior is effectively casting a vote for a particular identity. The brain begins asking, what do we do when this situation happens? And eventually answers automatically. This is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. Intensity creates moments. Consistency creates transformation. Examples. A person journals one day. Nothing changes. They journal for 6 months. Everything changes. A person misses a workout. No big deal. A person quits exercising entirely because of one missed workout. The habit dies. Consistency is not never missing. Consistency is returning quickly. If you fall, fall forward. One of the most important principles in the framework is, if you fall, fall forward. Mistakes happen. Setbacks happen. Relapses happen. Failures happen. The question is never, did I fall? The question is, what did I learn? A setback becomes valuable when it produces awareness. A mistake becomes useful when it creates correction. How to practice. Build small habits. Focus on repetition. Track progress. Celebrate returning. Stop demanding perfection. Ask, what is the next right step? Then take it. Questions for reflection. Where am I being inconsistent? What habits am I reinforcing? Did I return after setbacks? Am I chasing motivation or building discipline? What small action can I repeat tomorrow? How this step evolves. At first, consistency feels forced. Later, it becomes routine. Eventually, it becomes identity. The strongest people are rarely the most motivated. They are often the most consistent. Key insight. The goal is not never falling. The goal is always returning. Chapter 19. Stability under pressure. Remain grounded during storms. The problem. Anyone can appear stable when life is easy. It is easy to be patient when nothing is frustrating you. Easy to be disciplined when nothing tempts you. Easy to be calm when nothing threatens you. The true test of character is not comfort. It is pressure. Pressure reveals what comfort conceals. What is stability under pressure? Stability under pressure is the ability to maintain awareness, intentionality, and self-command during difficult situations. It does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means remaining grounded while experiencing stress. The storm may be present, but the storm is not steering the ship. Why stability matters. Life guarantees pressure. You will experience conflict, loss, fear, uncertainty, exhaustion, rejection, financial stress, disappointment. The goal is not avoiding these experiences. The goal is learning how to move through them without abandoning yourself. The psychology behind it. When stress becomes intense, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. The brain prioritizes immediate relief over long-term thinking. This is called emotional flooding. During emotional flooding, awareness narrows. Impulsivity increases, reasoning weakens, emotional reactions intensify. Many destructive behaviors occur inside these states. Not because people are weak. Because people are overwhelmed. The framework response. The framework teaches. Pause. Observe. Breathe. Name the emotion. Question the thought. Choose the response. These actions restore awareness and widen perspective. Examples. A financial emergency appears. Instead of spiraling, pause. Assess. Make a plan. Take the next step. A relationship conflict appears. Instead of reacting, observe. Listen. Respond intentionally. A craving appears. Instead of obeying, notice. Delay. Redirect. Continue. The wild horse effect. Pressure activates the horse. The horse may appear as anger, fear, anxiety, obsession, loneliness, frustration. Most people either suppress the horse or allow it to run wild. The framework teaches: harness the beast. Direct the energy. Use it. Slow your breathing. Create space before decisions. Journal difficult situations. Use halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Ask, what can I control right now? Focus there. Questions for reflection. What pressures affect me most? How do I usually respond? What emotions appear under stress? What helps me regain perspective? What would stability look like in this situation? How this step evolves. At first, pressure controls behavior. Later, pressure becomes manageable. Eventually, pressure becomes information rather than command. The goal is not eliminating storms. Strength is not measured by avoiding pressure. Strength is measured by remaining grounded while moving through it. Chapter 20. Relational Awareness. Understand others without losing yourself. The problem: human beings are relational creatures. Much of our joy comes through relationships. Much of our pain comes through relationships. Many people spend years learning about themselves but very little time learning how relationships actually work. As a result, they often react instead of listen, assume instead of understand, rescue instead of help, control instead of influence, abandon boundaries to avoid conflict. Relationships become complicated when awareness is absent. What is relational awareness? Relational awareness is the ability to understand both yourself and others within a relationship. It involves empathy, communication boundaries, emotional intelligence, perspective taking, self-respect. Relational awareness helps us remain connected without becoming consumed. Why relational awareness matters? Relationships act like mirrors. They reveal triggers, fears, insecurities, strengths, attachment patterns, communication habits. Many people believe their problems exist outside themselves. Relationships often reveal what is happening inside. The goal is not controlling others. The goal is understanding interactions more clearly. The psychology behind it: people rarely react to reality alone. They react to their interpretation of reality. Past experiences influence present relationships. A person abandoned in childhood may fear rejection. A person repeatedly betrayed may struggle with trust. A person raised in conflict may expect conflict. Without awareness, these patterns operate automatically. Relational awareness helps bring them into conscious view. Listening versus fixing. One of the most important lessons in healthy relationships is this: not every problem requires a solution. Sometimes people need understanding, validation, expression, connection before they need advice. Many people discover that speaking a problem out loud helps them uncover the solution themselves. Expression creates separation. Separation creates clarity. Examples: instead of immediately offering solutions, try asking, what are you feeling? What do you need right now? Instead of assuming intent, seek understanding. Instead of abandoning your needs, communicate honestly. Listen completely before responding. Ask questions. Observe emotional reactions. Practice empathy. Maintain healthy boundaries. Speak honestly and respectfully. Questions for reflection. Did I listen or merely wait to speak? What assumptions am I making? Am I helping or rescuing? Am I honoring my own boundaries? What is this relationship teaching me? How this step evolves. At first, relationships feel reactive. Later, they become understandable. Eventually, they become opportunities for growth, connection, and service. Key insight: understanding others should never require abandoning yourself. Chapter 21. Responsibility. Structure creates stability. The problem: many people spend enormous amounts of energy avoiding responsibilities. Not because they're lazy. Because responsibility often feels overwhelming. Avoided responsibilities become anxiety, stress, guilt, chaos. The longer they remain unaddressed, the larger they appear. What is responsibility? Responsibility is the willingness to own your obligations, choices, actions, and circumstances honestly. Responsibility means facing reality, handling obligations, solving problems, accepting consequences, taking ownership. It is not blame. It is ownership. Why responsibility matters. A life without structure eventually becomes unstable. Responsibilities are not punishment. They are building materials. Every responsibility handled creates trust, confidence, stability, self-respect. Avoidance creates fragility. Responsibility creates strength. The psychology behind it. The brain seeks immediate relief. Avoidance often provides temporary relief. Unfortunately, it also creates long-term pressure. This creates an avoidance loop. Problem. Avoidance. Temporary relief. Increased consequences. Increased anxiety. More avoidance. Responsibility interrupts the cycle. Facing a problem directly often reduces anxiety faster than avoiding it. Examples. Instead of ignoring finances, create a plan. Instead of avoiding a difficult conversation, have the conversation. Waiting for motivation, take the next necessary action. Foundation bricks. Responsibility often feels heavy in the moment. Over time, those responsibilities become foundation bricks. Bills paid. Promises kept. Problems addressed. Commitments honored. Each brick strengthens the structure of life. How to practice. Address problems early. Create systems. Develop routines. Accept ownership. Focus on solutions instead of blame. Questions for reflection. What am I avoiding? What responsibility needs attention? What is within my control? What problem becomes smaller if addressed today? What foundation brick can I lay right now? How this step evolves. At first, responsibility feels restrictive. Later, it feels stabilizing. Eventually, it becomes empowering. Key insight. Responsibilities stop feeling like chains once they become foundation bricks. Chapter 22. Identity embodiment. Become the person you practiced being. The problem. Many people spend years trying to become someone different while secretly believing they never will. They view growth as something temporary. Something they perform. Something they attempt. But eventually a question emerges. When does practice become identity? What is identity embodiment? Identity embodiment is the process by which intentional behaviors become integrated into who you are. At first, you practice awareness. You practice discipline. You practice honesty. You practice responsibility. Eventually, these behaviors stop feeling forced. They begin feeling natural. Why identity embodiment matters. The purpose of the framework is not endless self-improvement. The purpose is transformation. A person who continuously practices intentional behaviors eventually becomes the type of person who naturally performs them. Identity shifts. Behavior follows. The psychology behind it. The brain builds self-concept through evidence. Every repeated action provides evidence. The mind begins asking, what kind of person does this? Over time, the answer changes. Someone who repeatedly journals, shows up, keeps promises, regulates emotions, acts intentionally begins viewing themselves differently. Identity evolves through accumulated evidence. Examples. At first, you force yourself to pause before reacting. Later, pausing becomes automatic. At first, you consciously challenge destructive thoughts. Later, your mind naturally questions them. At first, you work hard to stay aligned with your values. Later, those values become part of your character. The turning point. Many people notice a moment where they realize, I'm not who I used to be. Not because life became easier. Not because they became perfect. Because they change. Brick by brick. Decision by decision. Day by day. Remain consistent. Trust the process. Focus on repeated actions. Allow identity to emerge naturally. Continue returning after setbacks. Questions for reflection. What behaviors have become natural? How am I different from a year ago? What evidence supports my growth? What identity am I reinforcing daily? Who am I becoming? How this step evolves. At first, identity feels chosen. Later, it feels practiced. Eventually, it feels embodied. The person you hope to become begins looking back at you from the mirror. Key insight. You become what you repeatedly practice. Chapter 23. Purposeful work and creation. Build instead of merely survive. The problem. Many people spend years surviving. paycheck to paycheck, crisis to crisis, problem to problem. Survival is necessary for a season. But survival was never meant to become a permanent identity. Human beings are builders by nature. We are designed to create, improve, solve, imagine, and contribute. When life becomes nothing but survival, something inside us begins to shrink. What is purposeful work and creation? Purposeful work and creation is the intentional act of building something meaningful. This may include skills, businesses, art, inventions, gardens, trades, ministries, families, ideas, systems. The object itself matters less than the act of creation. Why purpose matters? Purpose gives direction to effort. Without purpose, work feels meaningless. With purpose, effort becomes investment. Purpose transforms. I have to. Into. I get to build. The psychology behind it. Human beings possess a deep psychological need for competence and growth. People thrive when they experience progress, mastery, contribution, creativity. Creation generates meaning because it transforms imagination into reality. The act of building something reinforces agency. It reminds us that we can influence the world around us. Examples: building a garden, learning a trade, writing a book, creating a framework, starting a business, crafting a table from wood others overlooked. Each act says, I can create value. Develop skills. Pursue meaningful projects. Document ideas. Create more than you consume. Allow curiosity to lead exploration. Questions for reflection. What am I building? What skills am I developing? What problem am I trying to solve? What excites my curiosity? What contribution could I create? How this step evolves. At first, creation feels like a hobby. Later, it becomes purpose. Eventually, it becomes contribution. Key insight. A meaningful life must be intentionally cultivated. Chapter 24. Leadership. Influence through stability and authenticity. The problem. Many people misunderstand leadership. They imagine authority, control, titles, recognition. Leadership is often viewed as a position. In reality, leadership is influence. And influence exists whether we acknowledge it or not. What is leadership? Leadership is the ability to positively influence others through character, stability, wisdom, and example. Leadership is not domination. Leadership is demonstration. People follow what they consistently see. Why leadership matters. Every person influences someone. Children, friends, co-workers, family, community. The question is never, am I influencing people? The question is, what am I influencing them toward? Human beings learn heavily through modeling. We often imitate what we repeatedly observe. People trust actions more than words. Authenticity creates credibility. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates influence. Examples: remaining calm during conflict, sharing hard-earned wisdom, leading a recovery meeting, keeping promises, living according to your values, helping others without needing recognition. Servant leadership. The strongest leaders are often servants first. They focus on helping, teaching, listening, encouraging, guiding. Leadership is not about being above others. It is about helping others rise. Lead yourself first. Model the behavior you encourage. Remain teachable. Stay humble. Serve consistently. Questions for reflection. What example am I setting? Who is influenced by my actions? Am I leading through ego or service? What qualities do I admire in leaders? How can I become more trustworthy? How this step evolves. At first, leadership feels intentional. Later, it becomes natural. Eventually, people begin seeking your guidance because they trust your example. Key insight. People trust authenticity more than perfection. Chapter 25. Service. Help others without abandoning yourself. The problem. Many people move from selfishness to self-sacrifice without finding balance. Some help nobody. Others help everybody and neglect themselves. Neither extreme is healthy. Service requires wisdom. What is service? Service is the intentional use of your growth, knowledge, experience, and abilities to benefit others. Service transforms personal healing into shared value. Why service matters. Growth gains deeper meaning when it benefits more than ourselves. Pain becomes useful when it becomes wisdom. Struggle becomes meaningful when it becomes guidance. Recovery becomes powerful when it becomes hope. The psychology behind it. Human beings experience fulfillment through contribution. Research consistently shows that helping others increases meaning, connection, purpose, well-being. Service reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Examples: mentoring someone, helping family, listening to a struggling friend, sharing lessons learned, volunteering, teaching, encouraging, being present. The boundary principle. One of the most important truths in service is this: you cannot save others by destroying yourself. Healthy service requires healthy boundaries. You cannot pour from an empty cup. How to practice: help intentionally, maintain your own stability, share experience honestly, offer guidance without controlling outcomes, serve from abundance, not depletion. Questions for reflection: how can I help today? Am I serving wisely or rescuing? Am I maintaining healthy boundaries? What lessons can I share? Am I helping from love or obligation? How this step evolves. At first, service feels occasional. Later, it becomes a lifestyle. You cannot save others by abandoning yourself. Chapter 26. Legacy. Build something that outlives the struggle. The problem: many people spend their entire lives focused only on immediate survival. The next bill, the next crisis, the next problem. While survival matters, eventually a deeper question emerges. What remains after I'm gone? What is legacy? Legacy is the lasting impact created through your actions, character, relationships, ideas, and contributions. Legacy is not fame. Legacy is influence that continues beyond your presence. Why legacy matters. Legacy gives meaning to struggle. It transforms pain into purpose, lessons into wisdom, growth into guidance. The goal is not simply to improve your own life. The goal is to leave behind something valuable. The psychology behind it. As people mature, they often shift from self-development toward contribution. They begin asking, what am I building? Who am I helping? What wisdom am I passing on? What impact am I leaving behind? Legacy reflects humanity's desire to contribute beyond itself. Examples: raising children well, mentoring others, building a business, creating art, teaching wisdom, developing systems that help people, writing a framework that guides future generations. The living legacy. Many people think legacy begins at death. In reality, legacy begins now. Every conversation, every lesson, every example, every act of service. Legacy is built daily. How to practice. Document what you learn. Share wisdom. Invest in people. Build things that endure. Focus on contribution over recognition. Questions for reflection. What am I leaving behind? What lessons have I learned? Who benefits from my growth? What contribution matters most to me? How will today's actions shape tomorrow's impact? How this step evolves. At first, legacy feels distant. Later, it feels meaningful. Eventually, it becomes a guiding principle. Key insight. Pain becomes meaningful when transformed into contribution. Epilogue. The Builder's Path. If you've made it this far, you've probably noticed something. The framework never promised perfection. It never promised happiness every day. It never promised that life would stop being difficult. Because none of those things are realistic. What it promised was something far more valuable. Awareness, direction, structure, purpose. The ability to become intentional where you were once reactive. The ability to build where you once drifted. The ability to respond where you once merely reacted. The truth is, there is no finish line waiting for you. No final version of yourself. No day where you wake up and discover you've completely arrived. Human beings are living systems. We continue growing, learning, adapting, failing, rebuilding, and becoming for as long as we live. That is not a flaw. That is the journey. The framework was never intended to create perfect people. It was intended to help create aware people. People capable of observing themselves honestly. People capable of correcting direction. People capable of harnessing their strength instead of being controlled by it. People capable of building a life instead of merely surviving one. The wild horse never disappears. Neither do fear, anger, pain, temptation, doubt. The goal was never to eliminate these things. The goal was always to learn how to ride. To direct the energy. To use it instead of being used by it. Some days you'll move forward. Some days you'll stumble. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel lost. Return anyway. That may be the most important lesson in the entire framework. Return. Return to awareness. Return to your charter. Return to intentional action. Return to your values. Return to the person you are building. Because growth is rarely about never falling. Growth is about never staying down. You are not finished. Neither is this framework. Life will continue teaching lessons. New experiences will reveal new insights. New challenges will expose new weaknesses and new strengths. Keep building. Keep learning. Keep refining. Keep becoming. And whenever you lose your way, return to the question that started all of this. What kind of person am I intentionally building? Then lay the next brick. And then the next. And then the next. One day you'll look behind you and realize you didn't merely survive your life. You built it. If this resonates with you, I genuinely love your thoughts, questions, or feedback. Some of you might even want to try the daily journaling practice and share what happens.